What up, Cooks? It's your boy the Hater up in this piece. And one of the big stories of the week has been that apparently some contracts are coming up for WWE, right? Namely, Becky Lynch and Chad Gable. Now, some people are speculating that this might mean that either of them, or perhaps both, might go to AEW. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's complete nonsense. You know what I'm saying? None of that shit's gonna happen, alright? Becky Lynch is married to Seth Rollins and they have a daughter. So it seems to me that it's logical that their schedules align as much as possible, right? So that they are in the same place should they need to go back and be parents, right? I don't know, maybe they bring their daughter along. I'm not sure what happens. But what I do know is that it makes absolutely no sense. Number two, right? Chad Gable. Same thing. Not that he's married to Becky Lynch, who the fuck knows, right? But same thing in the sense that he has no reason to move because now, for the first time in his entire career, basically, he's in a meaningful storyline. He's like the only one that's getting a rub from this, right? I know that people think it's going to be Otis's moment, but it's not. This is obviously Chad Gable's time, right? If he's ever going to have one. Now, in AEW, yeah, he can go have a 10-star classic with Okada and Daniel Bryan, but I have a feeling that Chad Gable is not a 10-star classic kind of guy. You know, the only thing that might make this happen is if AEW does what they typically do, and that's offer like an insane amount of money to, to them to kind of like convince them to come, right? I read somewhere, I could be wrong, but I think they paid like, even like Ruby Riott, right? They paid her like, I saw somewhere it was 2 million, but that can't be right. They probably paid her like a few $100,000, but it's probably like a lot more than she got in WWE. So it's like you can get, and she hasn't done anything, but you can get people to come if you offer them like, twice as much, right? At the end of the day, why the fuck wouldn't I take twice as much, right? Now, Becky Lynch, I mean, the truth is she wouldn't take twice as much because if she does take twice as much, then, she's still young. Like she can still keep going for like, quite some time, maybe be a manager, do other things, right? So it's like, why would you burn that bridge for a company that's obviously on the decline, right? Chad Gable, same thing, right? Unless they're offering him like a big payday, he has no reason to go. So I'm not really concerned about this, but I think the bigger issue here is who the fuck cares, right? Who in the blue hell cares if Becky Lynch decides to go to AEW? Who in the blue hell cares if Chad Gable decides to go to AEW? I don't care at all. And I don't think anybody really does, right? Becky Lynch can go there and pretty much rehash the same things she did with Sasha Banks over the TBS title. She can go do that if she wants. But the realities are what the realities are. There is no need for any panic for anyone that cares about these wrestlers. But if you do care about these wrestlers, I think that's the bigger problem, right? We don't want to see any of these people in AEW. And in my personal opinion, from the perspective of AEW, this is also bad for them, right? It's like you can't continuously just hire the Ruby Riotts and the Sasha Bankses of the world and hope to make them bigger stars than they were in WWE. That's never going to happen, right? It's just not possible for Sasha Banks to be a bigger star in, AEW than she is in WWE. However, I will say this. If you are Sasha Banks and pretty much you quit every couple of weeks in WWE, that's something that, might make her like want to go to AEW where she can just go after a lot more money and clearly work a lot less, right? Like, some people are saying she's getting like $2 million as well, right? Or even more maybe, right? So it's like if she's getting, let's say she's getting $1 million a year, right? It's been like 2 months. She's gotten like 250,000 basically. I butchered the math there like a cuck bitch. You know what I'm saying? She's gotten what, like 160,000, like 89,000 per month or something like that. It's gonna work out to, right? So it's like she's getting an insane amount of money for like what she's doing, right? So it's very attractive. But from the perspective of AEW, you don't want this to happen, right? You don't want. I mean, Tony Khan probably does. But from the perspective of intelligent people, I should say, you don't want this to happen, The better move would be for AEWs to start pushing their own talent, right? The problem is that everything is so sporadic, right? Like Britt Baker hasn't been around for like a year. She hasn't done anything. Like she's been there since day one and basically had like a very forgettable title run. And beyond that, it's like, who the fuck cares, right? She's not doing anything else with her life. I mean, I guess she's a dentist, so, that's probably making her a lot more money than her shitty AEW career. But you never know. Nowadays, anything's possible. It's, but it's been a minute, right? It's been like, let's see here. I just Googled it. She later competed, this is Britt Baker, for the AEW Women's title in a meaningless match at All In London. And on September 13th of Dynamite, so nearly a year ago, following an unsuccessful challenge for the Jobber title on Collision on September 16th, she took a step back from performing, saying, a lot of the fans said, we want less Britt Baker, so if that's what they want, that's what they'll get. Let me take a step back. Here are the rest of the women. Right. Okay, great. So she hasn't been there for a year, which basically even just the statement that I read would suggest that, like, number one, she's making the terrible mistake of listening to the fans. And two, she's focusing on other things. Good for her. But the reality is that she never drew a dime either. But at the very least, you can book her as an AEW original, right? You cannot book Sasha Banks as an AEW original because she's not an AEW original. She's a WWE jobber, right? So with all of this to be considered, right, AEW's biggest flaw has been the fact that they refuse to make any stars. The closest they got was MJF, even though he was already he's like an MLW guy. But fine, we don't count that because it's like bullshit. Nobody knows what it is. But, MJF is the only one that they've made into like a champion, I feel like, that has been, you can call him an AEW original. Everybody else just was already big everywhere, right? Like we can even go through the AEW world title lineage and I can prove myself right. As a matter of fact, why the fuck don't we do that up in this bitch? So first up, Jericho, who's obviously a WWE guy. Next up, Jon Moxley, another WWE guy. Kenny Omega, and New Japan guy. Hangman Adam Page, an ROH and New Japan guy who was already well into his career at this point. He's still young, but they've already dropped the ball with him. Then after him, CM Punk, because you need another WWE guy. Then Jon Moxley, then CM Punk, then Jon Moxley, then MJF, finally one of the only guys, and then Samoa Joe and Swerve Strickland, both WWE guys. So, AEW has done a horrible job, a piss poor job, pushing the people that, if you tuned into AEW, you'd be like, okay, what have I not seen before, right? Like when I tuned into the first episode of AEW, I'm like, oh, okay, who are these new guys? Let's see if any of them are going to be stars. And I remember I saw Sammy Guevara. I thought to myself, jobber that's not going to go anywhere. Then I saw Darby Allin, and I was like, all right, this guy's kind of interesting. This guy could be something one day, right? But instead of pushing him, they put him in the back foot, right? So that he could go and have matches with Luke Harper, who was another WWE guy that they wanted to push. And that's the problem. The problem is that they just keep focusing on outside guys instead of making their own guys. And the irony, the ultimate irony of this strategy is that, in my personal opinion at least, right? In my personal opinion, it really seems like the best guys that they do have are legit, we'll call them AEW guys, right? Primarily Darby Allin and fucking, Will Hobbs, right? Nobody knew who the fuck Will Hobbs was until he appeared in that random-ass battle royal, right? But, he's a talented guy. He's got a lot going for him. But instead of pushing him, or even Wardlow, right? Wardlow's already a jobber. He's the fifth guy in a faction of jobbers, and this will inevitably lead to him having to choose between MJF and Adam Cole, to which midget abuses him less, which half of a man abuses Wardlow, who's 3 times their size, less. Wardlow's gonna be I don't know which master to choose, like a dog. War dog, more like lap dog, am I right? So the point is, Wardlow should be pushed, Hobbs should be pushed, Darby Allin should be pushed. Not only because these are the 3 most interesting guys that they got, but because they're legit AEW guys. So putting Chad Gable there, putting Becky Lynch there, it's not gonna lead to anything. Becky Lynch and Chad Gable are not interesting enough to ever make a difference. Let's be honest, they're never gonna draw. right? Chad Gable is never, like, I like Chad Gable, but he's never drawn a dime. Becky Lynch, she was like a draw for like a year, and now she doesn't draw a dime, right? So these are not sustainable people to invest from your company. So as a result of that, and the fact that, I'm sure both of them are going to be offered contract extensions given their prominent role on Monday Night Raw in recent memory, I think they're both going to end up staying. So, nothing to worry about, nothing to write home about. Fuck them both up in this bitch.